Right, hey guys, how are we doing? Continuing with Totally Not Mark's review of One Piece. We're checking out Fishman Island. I loved Fishman Island. I always have this weird thing where a new story starts. I've probably mentioned this already. I have to, like, I read the first volume quite slowly because it's like building it up, and then after that it's like boom. Fishman Island kind of had that. I felt it was a bit, in my personal opinion, a bit slow, but everything is for me, and then it just gets into it. We learned so much stuff about random characters, like the guy that freed the slaves and that. So how Boa Hancock, how that had, like, you know, that links that together, and then Jinbei, and what happened with Jinbei in the past and that. It was so cool. Right, let's just check out what Totally Not Mark has to say.
I am tired right now. Not necessarily because I didn't like Fishman Island, but because
the princess was funny.
Totally fell apart this week, resulting in me
And the guy that could, like, throw stuff and it would just, like, go to there when he did the whole thing with the arc was like, whoa.
I am holding my eyes open at 1 AM after having read for what felt like 1,000 years.
Damn.
Actually, you know what? I don't think I should be writing a script right now. I'm too tired.
Oh no.
I'll continue this in the morning.
Okay.
Hours
later.
Much better.
Yay!
To be honest, I feel like I have a much more solid
Oh, her story was nice as well.
has to offer now. Last week, I dipped my toe back into reviewing the story of One Piece with the short but charming return to Sabaody, which, in a lot of ways, acted as a setup arc of sorts for this fishy boy. And let me tell you,
the fishy boy.
Fishman Island has a lot going on.
It does.
Whether that's a good or a bad thing, I will explore in this episode. So, welcome back, everyone. I'm Totally Not Mark, and these are my first impressions of, thoughts on, and review for A Tale 30,000 Feet Beneath the Ocean Surface, exploring personal.
I love how he's like, it's the Kraken. I'll just tame him.
This is the turbulent, the busy, and the foreboding.
Oh yeah, she can see the future, can't she? Cool.
Right, so before I dive into this one, I want to touch on a couple of things I neglected to mention last week.
Okay.
Return to Sabaody was, in effect, the prelude to Fishman Island, and without which wouldn't work nearly as well. It acts as the reintroduction to the entire...
Yeah, like everyone's been gone for 2 years, so let's give them a moment to catch up.
Since we last saw them 2 years prior, with full redesigns. Sanji's hair is brushed to the other side with some facial hair. Zoro, most notably, has a scar over his left eye, which I'm sure has a very interesting story behind it.
I'm intrigued.
Chopper has remained largely the same aesthetically, with the biggest difference being that of his hat. Nami has...
He has a different transformation now as well, doesn't he?
Usopp is buff now.
Yeah.
A little soul patch goatee thing. Robin's hair is different, pushed back. I'm not sure if I like it more or less. And no physical changes are obvious yet. Frankie is a massive upgraded mechanical...
Hell yeah, Frankie.
Brook is a superstar, which leaves Luffy, whose biggest physical change comes in the form of an X-shaped scar across his torso, acting as a constant reminder of why it's so important for him to get stronger to protect those he loves. As a result of this love, as well as all the time they've spent training, the crew has literally never been stronger.
They are absolutely, yeah.
Speaking
it was sick.
Bartholomew Kuma, the real one, acting on its last shredded...
I did feel like he didn't really talk about it much in the last one, so now it's like, yeah.
I don't know what this means for the future, but I'm interested to see how Dr. Vegapunk plays into future events.
Yeah, man, so, wait.
Changes the characters have undergone over the last 2 years. This being most evident with characters like Usopp and Zoro, whose physical changes echo the tribulations they underwent over the training period of the last 2 years. But with characters like Frankie and Robin, I'm not sure if I like these redesigns as much as the former, but who knows? They might grow.
I like Frankie's. Robin's, I don't think has changed that much, so...
Anything, it's as a statement to the rest of the world that the Straw Hats are here.
Hell yeah.
Forced to be reckoned with. Alright, enough teasing. And with a weird, long-tongued creep...
Oh, he is strange.
...dive to the depths below, not knowing the adventure that awaits them. Speaking generally before diving into the story in greater detail, I actually really enjoyed this arc. It's by no means the best or even in the top 5. I would say I got a little bit more enjoyment out of this arc than I did with Little Garden. Or perhaps the same. It doesn't do anything structurally different to the prior arcs of the story, and does some things here and there that I didn't really enjoy so much that I will explore in greater detail later.
Okay.
Overall, I'm pretty happy I read it. It has some tender moments, and I totally...
I thought it was class. I thought Fishman Island was class, yeah.
Fishman Island is a story that finally explores the rich history of the area and its people that have since the very beginning of the story been ostracized and belittled for how they are.
Oh yeah, man, we get to learn about Arlong's past as well, which is interesting.
Which is a really interesting way of tackling the issue, I think. Now, with that said, I think it can be very heavy-handed in parts, with certain characters devolving down to represent the extremity of a certain ideology's point of view. But overall, I think it offers more...
What did the humans ever do to you? Nothing. It's like, whoa, you are a bad guy.
Immediately caught my eye as I'm sure it did with many of your own when you first saw it, was Rayleigh's farewell to the Straw
Yes.
Hats as he watches them dive down to the depths below.
Probably reflecting on when his journey with Goldie Roger.
Young and skinny, brimming with a large smile painted across his face, wearing a straw hat. He asks Rayleigh to join his crew, and the rest was history. But the fact that Roger has Luffy's hat, or has a hat similar to Luffy, has me thinking, that straw hat Roger was wearing, how did it come to be worn by Shanks? Okay, here's a theory. And it's a bold one. What if Shanks was the one to kill Roger? What if Shanks poisoned him? And the reason he went to look over Luffy was to keep tabs on him. By some mechanism, he knew that Luffy was the one. He knows now that Luffy is going to come all the way back to him to deliver the hat, and maybe Luffy growing into the person he is today is important for something he wants to achieve.
Oh, mate, imagine.
The sea, and he was the enemy of Whitebeard for
That's a theory.
You know that Whitebeard's a good guy. Now, obviously, there needs to be a few more bits of setup, and an explanation needs to be delivered upon. But
So let's have 100 more, like,
for the big bad
volumes.
hero of the story to have been established in the very first chapter without anyone really knowing.
That would be sick.
Awesome, but who knows? I could be completely wrong, and probably am. Besides, I spent too long speculating. Time to talk about
The actual, yeah.
The story centers around the crew as they make their treacherous way towards Fishman Island. And you'd think that once they have the ship kitted out with diving qualities, that would be the most difficult part.
Nope.
Well, it absolutely isn't. And this is one of the aspects of this arc.
The random currents.
Set itself apart from the rest of the other arcs. This destination, Fishman Island, is the most treacherous out of all the others we've ever visited in the past. Just like the rest of the crew, we are experiencing all of this in real time as they dive 10,000, 20,000...
I love the amount of detail that's put into, like, exploring places, though. It is cool. I just read it slow. That's why I'm glad I'm reading the manga. I can take my time with it.
That center around the exploration of a particular island, the journey to Fishman Island alone is just as action-packed and important as the activity that goes down once they do meet their destination. This brief but introduction to the depths of One Piece both inform the
Which we've seen before. He uses animals to, like, keep things... I love it.
Mechanics we will have to contend with during this story, like enormous mythical creatures and bubble suits that enable the likes of those with devil fruit abilities to navigate the water they're in. Which, by the way, I thought was introduced in an ingenious way, if I'm being perfectly honest. You see, something we've not had to contend with much in the series so far is air, oxygen.
Yeah.
In this story, it plays a massive role, specifically because it's in short supply a lot of the time in various scenes. For instance, the study that Raleigh coated has a membrane that can be permeated, but not to an extreme extent, meaning one or two individuals can punch or slice through it, but if too many at once try,
it'll pop.
It won't end well. Which is a nice bit of added tension to the group's
Sanji, he's losing so much blood.
Are devil fruit users, which, by the way, offered a lot in the way of an opportunity for Luffy to demonstrate his character perfectly. Throughout the treacherous journey down through the depths of the sea, further and further the crew encounter numerous obstacles and beasts they need to flee from. And thankfully,
then they find the whales.
But the drawback is that it uses oxygen, which, I mean, on its own is sort of cool to create tension, but it gets compounded when the situation worsens, leading to them all running out of oxygen on the Sunny when they needed to make a split decision of whether to run away or to keep the air. But the interesting part is, at no point does Luffy waver. He has limitless resolve and belief in his crew.
Because they're going.
If there was ever a moment where the devil fruit
we are on our way.
Feeling the pressure, it's right there. Surrounded by water.
Jeez, yeah, think about that.
Beneath the surface,
one weakness.
Your crew to rely on. But Luffy never stresses. And I think that's why he's so carefree. It's not because he has everything under control, it's that he trusts his crew unconditionally.
Yeah.
And together he knows that between them, there's always a solution that can be found. I mean, he insists on befriending the literal kraken
which is sick.
In the middle of the ocean,
absolutely sick.
Beneath the surface. How insane is
yeah, but the way they did it was
funny.
He disappears, doesn't he, saying he's gonna like take it, and then he comes back with it later.
Is pursuing them. However, through unfortunate circumstances for him, he gets captured by the Straw Hats and separated from his own crew.
Yes.
Make sure to remember him. He becomes very important later.
Yes, he does.
We also see the Flying Dutchman ship on the way down, which becomes important later also. But, needless to say, they arrive on Fishman Island, which, by the way, given the nature of its inhabitants, is a really weird name for a place. It's like all of us calling our own respective hometowns Humanburg or something.
I suppose, yeah.
Again, maybe One Piece has really weird place names. I mean, Usopp is from Syrup Village, so checks out. But back to the story.
Yeah.
What I like about the introduction here also, when they arrive on the the island is the struggle there is to actually land the damn ship. It acts as a way of introducing us to all the issues that navigating in 3D space instead of sailing on the sea involves. In this place, they are surrounded by water, and once they do land where they want to be, they are unfortunately submerged underwater in the ocean, which is a big problem, but thankfully...
Yay!
Acting as a nice reintroduction for the character in the series, as well as offering the story an individual to give us natural exposition for the world of Fishman Island and what's going on there and then.
Hell yes.
So, let's talk about the big bloody-nosed elephant in the room. I actually didn't mind Sanji in this arc.
Yeah.
I know that sounds
He's
sort of
gotten better.
contradictory, and I don't find it really remotely interesting, but it is what it is. I don't actively dislike it like I did the Absalon scene from Thriller Bark. In that, Sanji acted sort of like a creep, whereas here, albeit to a ridiculous extreme, all he's really doing is finding people attractive and...
Yeah, I suppose it was like,
He
yeah.
always did that.
I mean, it wasn't as
What
bad
is
as he made out in
funny
Thriller
about
Bark,
this
but
to
yeah.
me is that it's used as a mechanism to give the crew a short-term goal to drive the plot forward. Sanji was deprived of seeing people he found attractive for so long that now the mere sight
It's
of
just
attractive
too
girls
much.
sends him flying into the sky.
I love it.
Yes, that is a sentence I just said right now. This is literally the only anime I know where the lustful nosebleed actually has ramifications.
Yeah, it's classic. He's losing so much blood.
Kind of funny. Regardless, this creates circumstances wherein, along with certain stresses imposed by a sneak attack from the Fishman pirates, the Straw Hats need to escape and find Sanji a suitable blood transfusion,
God. Which brings up an
apparently
interesting...
requires
Yeah.
rare blood type because Sanji's blood type is rare. As viewers and readers, this introductory scuffle informed us of three things. Sanji is a hopeless case.
Yes.
Luffy has gotten monstrously powerful,
Yep.
and the laws of Fishman Island are colored by their history. This particular
Definitely, yeah, like
circumstance,
Fishmen
while
and
it does
humans
need
can't
swift solution,
transfuse
it
blood.
also shines a light on the two main themes of
Which
the
was a
story.
rule that was
Prejudice
brought
and
in by the
forgiveness.
humans.
That I find incredibly compelling personally, as I identify these as particular story topics that are timeless. Also, while fleeing the scene where they landed at the Mermaid Inlet, they encountered and ultimately run from the princes of Fishman Island, who happen to have been pursuing the Straw Hats with the goal of relaying to them a message from
Jinbei,
who was
yeah.
waiting for them at the forest of the sea.
I thought that was
They
quite
also
cool.
wanted
It's
to
like,
know
oh, Jinbei's
that
waiting,
should
so we're gonna
not
see him
fight a
sometime.
person by the name of Huddy. And that's not even to mention this character called Madame Charlie, the boss of the Mermaid Cafe
She's
where
cool.
Cammy works. This was the place they settled on to give Sanji his blood transfusion. She has the ability to predict the future using her crystal ball, and this very vision she has brings about the end of Fishman Island. And the
And
person
it's
responsible
Luffy.
she identifies as Straw Hat Luffy. And, okay, this is what I think was the most jarring part of Fishman Island. Because it's picking up right after a break in the series with very little build-up from the arc prior, it felt like I was being bombarded with dozens of new characters. And it felt
What if
that
she
way
was
because
seeing
I was.
Shanks with his
Remember when I
hat
said in the
back?
prior video that at the beginning of these
The
volumes,
theory
we
keeps
need
going.
someone dedicated at the start to keep you up to date with the relationships established in the story, who people are and who they are allied with. Remember that? Okay, well this is what the second volume of this story shows us. Wanna guess how many people I have to keep track of?
A lot.
I'll give you a hint. It's 31.
Hey.
That's a lot to remember
Yeah.
for little old me, and as someone who needs to keep track of the story's moving parts in order to review...
There were a few bad guys, weren't there?
I
Yeah.
found it almost overwhelming early on. With that said, however, this does
Star
improve
Dude's
greatly as
cool.
Oda streamlines the story relatively quick after this. Having spent the first arc establishing a lot of the characters in the story, explaining and demonstrating how the world of Fishman Island works through wildlife, cultures, belief systems, citizens, as well as its technology and infrastructure, this arc, if nothing else, is ambitious in its telling.
Definitely.
So let's see how the story starts to connect the dots and picks up from this point.
Act 2.
It's at this point the main plot thread starts to take a hold of the story. We're introduced to and get to know two important antagonistic characters for the arc. Hottie Jones, captain of the new Fishman Pirates, and Vander Danken, captain of the
Vander
Flying
Danken.
Pirates and the Flying Dutchman ship, which we saw towards the beginning of the story. Both of these characters effectively in one form or another threaten to corrupt and tear
Vander
the
Danken
island
was weird,
itself
man.
apart.
He was obsessed with the
As
princess.
I didn't personally find them too interesting on an individual level, and they certainly lack the same level of charisma other older characters like Arlong and Crocodile
Yeah.
had. But that's not to say that either of them don't have anything to offer the story. Vander Decken is a crucial plot device that allows the story itself to function as smoothly as it does, possessing a devil fruit ability that allows him to, once he touches someone, to throw anything towards them without missing. Now,
Yeah.
that sounds rather unremarkable when set alongside other more flashy abilities, but it's this very power that holds the foundations of the plot together that I will
Yeah, because he can keep throwing stuff at the princess, can't he?
later on. On the personality front, Decken is more akin to a comedic sideshow attract. By no means the main force of the arc, and resembles something out of the Wacky Races cartoon more than
Yes, definitely more of a...
Jones, on the other hand, I really enjoyed, but I should preface that by saying that I think if he had been used in any other setting or story, he would have been a ludicrously boring character.
I suppose.
Which is to say that he works extremely well for this particular story and this story alone.
Which is fine.
And this is made all the more evident by how he turns out at the very end of this arc. The reason why Honey Jones serves this story so well comes down to what the story is trying to achieve. As this tale unravels, it comes more and more to the forefront of the narrative that racism and prejudice are at the core of this story.
Definitely.
And a fantastic
Definitely.
oftentimes complex concepts is by pitting two extreme versions of the ideology spectrum.
And Van der Decken's got to have that bubble, so because he's a Devil Fruit user. Interesting.
Racism and hatred in its purest forms. In Arlong Park, we got some minor exposition regarding his feelings on human-Fishman relations, but it was by no means the main topic of the story.
Nope, it was
This
just
time
like
it
something that
Hottie
is mentioned.
As a terrific tool to communicate one side's feelings on the topic. And once Luffy and the crew meet the royal family of the kingdom, but most notably the princess, they become, as they often do, caught up in the complex turmoil the Fishman people find
Yeah.
themselves embroiled with.
Bad things seem to follow them.
Are taken to the palace by King Neptune, where Luffy meets Princess Shirahoshi,
Yay.
an enormous mermaid that has been locked away in her room for 10 years, hiding from one Van der Decken who relentlessly throws lethal weapons and projectiles towards her from a very far distance in an effort to kill her for not agreeing to marry him. Now,
If he can't have her,
Luffy,
no one
she's
can.
initially reluctant to trust him at all. Oh, and as a quick aside, this particular arc is filled with moments where someone asks Luffy to prove himself, but he never once tries to convince anyone of anything. He is who he is, and he always lets his actions speak for themselves. He won't apologize for who he is, and in this particular story, where many fishmen judge humans and humans judge fishmen, it's a really powerful use of Luffy's character to fit and contribute to this particular story. And once he successfully protects the princess from an unknown projectile, she feels safe enough to leave her tower to explore the wider world.
Yeah, he's like, come on, let's go on a journey. Adventure.
Which again highlights Luffy's character as someone who, no matter how significant or powerful he is, will have no issue finding the time for a single individual if they so need it. Also, she sneaks out inside her pet shark Megala, who's an absolute trooper in this story.
Yeah, man.
However, once her identity is eventually let slip and she slides out of the shark's mouth for all the public to see, they are forced to flee with her to the Forest of the Sea, where the most significant side of the arc takes place.
Jinbei.
It's at this location Luffy happens to find and meet up with Jinbei, who was waiting specifically for Luffy here. If you recall,
He's such a
towards the
dude.
beginning of the story, he was the one who had sent the three princes to relay a message to Luffy. That message was to go to the Forest of the Sea to meet with him and to not fight Hottie Jones. Good thing he managed to get there without anyone receiving the message. Now, it's here we're greeted with a flashback and perhaps the best part of the story, really. For hundreds of chapters now, the history of these people and the hardships they faced have been drip-fed to us. Which
Well, then Jinbei tells the story and Luffy does not pay attention.
These flashbacks a strength the rest of the story doesn't really have much of, which is build-up. We want to know about Arlong's origins. We want to learn
Which
about
was sick.
Fisher Tiger, and
Yes.
we really want to learn about the Queen's story, who is held in incredibly high regard within this society after dying tragically young.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about the flashback.
Woohoo.
The best thing about this flashback is that it makes the entire climax of the arc far more interesting.
Yes, definitely when we learn the history in that and then the resolve, it's like,
The story in a more interesting way while exploring and extrapolating from the core themes of this narrative, providing more depth and intrigue. These flashbacks cover many years of struggle from various points of view, including but not limited to Hottie Jones as a kid,
Yeah.
Van der Decken, Fisher Tiger, Jinbei, and Arlong working beneath Fisher Tiger as young men before both defecting, and the royal family, to name but a few.
Yeah, it's
Primarily
class to see where they all
following
came from.
the history of Queen Otahime. Something of note also is that I thought her design, being that of a goldfish, was inspired. The goldfish in Japan symbolizes prosperity and children, which is fitting as
Oh.
this character's ultimate goal is to free the future generations of this cycle
Yeah.
of hatred her
Wow.
people have found themselves to be trapped in. I found her character to be charming and incredibly sweet, highlighted during a specific series of events surrounding the sudden arrival of a celestial
Dragon, yeah.
This and that of these people he deemed
Oh, I hate it when one of them turn up. You're like,
typical
ooh.
likable celestial dragons. Of the entire crowd formed around him,
Oh.
Otahime is the only one who shows any ounce of compassion, and in a selfless act that embodies her belief perfectly, she jumps in front of this despicable human being to protect him from a gunshot. The character of Orihime is crucial to the overall message of
Definitely,
the story,
Jesus
and
Christ.
She embodies the overall goal
When you learn who actually killed her as well.
But as I said, she isn't the only individual we see color the pages of these flashbacks. And between Fisher Tiger and the young Jinbei
Fisher Tiger was class.
Hottie Jones is exposed to some horrid ideas from a very young age, ultimately leading him to carry this hatred for no reason.
No reason at all, yeah. He even says himself.
Of what Orihime was trying to avoid, to fight against, to prevent the next generation from inheriting the hatred of the past. And I thought that was covered really well throughout this entire arc, to be honest. Especially considering the one who ultimately killed Orihime is Hottie, as she is to him, standing in the way of progress for his race of people. After these flashbacks, another compelling set of conversations take place. My two favorites of the arc. The first being that of Nami reconciling the fact that Jinbei was responsible for her time under Arlong, ultimately releasing him into the East Blue in the first place. Ending with her ultimately forgiving him for
which was like, whoa.
But the second is by far the most interesting for me. It's the debate that takes place between Jinbei and Luffy after these flashbacks end, regarding what's the next step in solving this Hottie Jones matter. I thought this was genius and offered a very unique flavor to the dialogue I hadn't felt really since Water 7 with Usopp. Both sides of this
They start arguing, don't they? And they start fighting for a little bit.
Luffy wants to take out this murdering racist that wants to bring about destruction and widespread hatred, but Jinbei says quite rightly that that will do more bad than good.
Yeah, definitely.
As it will be yet another instance of
Humans fighting Fishman.
turning
Yeah.
Hottie himself into a martyr, which is a really fascinating angle to take this complex situation from. It's a surprisingly easy to understand, nuanced point of view that stands completely at odds with Luffy's way of thinking. And so from that, the new goal
Sanji
becomes
just doesn't
how
do
they
anything to
control
like
the
help
optics
us.
of the situation. How do they turn Luffy into Fishman Island's hero?
Yes.
Act 3. This act, much like the rest of the arc, isn't concerned primarily with plot, but more so the individual elements contributing to and expanding upon the given themes of the arc itself. Does it work 100%? Yes and no. On a thematic level, I think it works perfectly fine. But from a plot point of view, a lot of the characters who interact in this arc feel less like characters, but more like stand-ins or vehicles to deliver an idea specifically for the arc and its themes.
Okay.
For instance, Hottie Jones, as I said, represents what could happen. He represents what happens when you don't encourage the next generation to forgive.
Yes, definitely give you that. He is very much just one thought. Jibbers must die.
His power in exchange for time off of his life. And throughout the arc, right up until the end, Hottie Jones changes from a youthful, strong fishman to a withered bigot, with his hatred being the direct cause for his loss of life. His own hatred having taken his own freedom and youth from him. He is by no means a complex character, but again an example to show everyone what can happen if the thematic message isn't successful.
Yeah.
Because he's not much of a character and only conceived for this arc, he gets locked away at the end at a really old age. So I would be really surprised if he ever shows
Does anything, yeah, in the future. I'd be surprised as well.
Glancing over stuff, but trust me, I have understood and appreciated everything I've read here. It's just because the story really only has one main plot thread active at any given time, there's so many things that have to be explained in a single storyline. Like, I didn't even really talk about Hottie's backstory, or Fisher Tiger's story, or Arlong's origins, or Vanderdecken's history with the Flying Dutchman. And the reason is if I did all of it, it would just be recapping, and this video would be like 2 hours long. Fishman Island feels so...
I thought that the Fisher Tiger stuff was important, though. Because, like I said, like it helps us like understand what happened with Boa Hancock and that.
Other interconnecting plot threads at any given time. So, for the sake of my mind and your time, you can rest assured that I thoroughly enjoyed that flashback for Fisher Tiger and all the rest of them. And from
And when you found out that he was a slave as well, and then it's like we can't let the people know.
in the public square after he delivers a pretty character-rich speech to the citizens of Fishman Island. And for context, narratively, this also takes place right after Luffy and Jinbei had that argument over how best to deal with this situation they're facing tactfully. Flanked by 100,000 pirates backing his cause,
Oh, they don't care.
stands Hottie, now with a head full of withering white hair and a massively different body. The results of his
Keeps taking those
desire to
pills.
indulge in this power pill. This is where the story finally starts getting into some decent action. Madame Charlie, the fortune teller, steps forth from the crowd
To just
and has
get
ultimately turned on
bitch
Hottie
slapped.
Jones after his speech, revealing to the crowd what she knows about Straw Hat Luffy, which quickly brings the crowd into chanting for Luffy to come and take care of Hottie.
Yeah, everyone's
Hottie
like,
has now
Luffy,
become
please,
so
Straw Hat,
monstrous that
Straw
even the
Hat.
fishmen that are unsure of the human race in general are cheering against him. And with various chants for Luffy echoing throughout the area, out from Megalo's stomach flies Luffy.
Hell yeah.
A massive attack on Hottie, who's sent flying. Springing forth, standing alongside their captain, stand the rest of the Straw Hat crew.
So
they are
sick.
interested in changing the minds of or convincing anyone of anything, and This is our first chance to see how powerful they really have
Yeah.
become. And this fight is actually really tense, starting with something massively impressive. Luffy takes out half of the
By
army,
himself.
50,000 people with his haki
Yeah.
alone. With the rest of the Straw Hats,
Which is, it's like, let's showcase what they've learned.
From this very section, the part that stayed with me the most as a striking visual was the moment Luffy walks casually through the hurricane of a battle.
Mate, that scene was so sick where Sanji and Zoro just block them to keep him going. I love that manga panel.
It's a powerful moment demonstrating that
So powerful. He just
over the last 2 years.
full confidence in his crew.
Force to be reckoned with. And to be honest, Luffy is way too powerful in this instance for Hadi to prove to be a threat even in the slightest. Which is why Oda makes use of the technology established at the beginning of this story. And thus enter Vanderdecken to inject some ridiculous stakes, circumstances, and set
The
pieces.
arc.
The dude throws a massive arc called Noah that has massive significance, which I'll speak on later. But anyway, he throws the giant arc, causing it to follow like all the other projectiles towards the princess. Meaning it will crash into Fishman Island if she doesn't move. Which means now she has to flee the island and begin
I was very, very much like, what the actual hell? So you see the arc, like, and how big it is in comparison above everything. It's like, whoa. Yeah, he's like, how dare you? You would have killed me.
By the bubble technology and the princes from before, take out Hadi once and for all in an incredibly cathartic way. But this still doesn't resolve the circumstances. The massive ship is still on a collision course falling towards the island below. Now, I didn't mention...
Well, the Luffy starts trying to destroy it.
Flashback, which I did a terrible job of explaining, it reveals the key piece of information that led to Vanderdecken pursuing the princess for the last 10 years in the first place. It's her ability to communicate with the Neptunians. A gift that is granted to maybe one individual every few centuries. Which is a massive deal.
Yeah.
Considering how enormous the Neptunians are in this particular section.
Oh my god, and they mentioned Goldie Roger as well. Because no one else can hear them talking except Luffy.
Destroy the ship before it lands. She screams for him to stop. This ship is important for her people and carries a tremendous significance, but also, there's now no need anymore. Having not known how to control this power or that she even had it, she manages to pull off this right at the last second. And at the very end of this battle, Luffy, much like Fisher Tiger was in his story, is left lifeless after a savage encounter, in desperate need of a blood transfusion. However, as it was established in the beginning of the story, giving blood to a human is forbidden by law. And at the same time, throughout this story, Jinbei has been an incredibly compelling character to follow.
Jinbei's line,
the story, a ton of
pirates don't follow the law.
Raised to resent the society that put his people into slavery, even after Fisher Tiger's passing, he still held onto both resentment and shame for what his actions wrought. However, Jinbei, in this moment with Luffy, decides to not hold onto anger and gives Luffy his blood. Again, I didn't mention this earlier, but during those flashback sequences, we saw how Fisher Tiger came to die. It was his decision to not accept the blood transfusion of a human. He held on to hatred and thus died as a direct result of it. A blood transfusion acting as a powerful example that we are all made of the exact same stuff on the inside. That focusing on the outside is what brought slavery about in the first place and what ultimately brought about his own demise. And reflecting on that, Jinbei acts as an example for the older generations too, that you as well as the next generation do not need to continue this awful resentment. And what makes this story even more nuanced is that Oda accepts that there are those that will never be able to feel like they can forgive. And that can be okay too, as long as you don't instill this resentment in the next generation. And to be honest, I think that's a really powerful message for a story. I mean, as many of you might already know, I'm Irish. I've lived in Ireland my entire life, and in doing so, I've become aware of Ireland's turbulent past with the British Empire and England. And while relations between Ireland and the British Empire are relatively great right now, all things considered regarding our history, there are still Irish alive today that despise the British for the past that we share. And perhaps it's because of my upbringing, but I really appreciated that angle that this arc took when discussing prejudice and forgiveness. Oftentimes during these stories, a massive amount of focus is put on the racism side of the argument, and that's because it's the obvious target and makes for a compelling force to fight against. And it goes without saying that it absolutely 100% is a force that should be fought against.
Definitely.
But in these circumstances, situations are rarely cut and dry, especially if you extrapolate over a number of generations. And the fact is that these circumstances will continue to affect every subsequent generation until both sides reach an eventual understanding. And I love that this story took the time to focus on the forgiveness side of the argument, as it is, in my opinion, the single most important and fascinating part to explore within a story. If I were to hold English people my age responsible for the sins of their great-grandparents, or entire country for that matter, then all I'm doing is perpetuating this horrific toxic mentality to future generations to suffer through, full of resentment and hatred, which not only isn't fair to them and the English, but also doesn't make any logical sense.
No.
In Fishman Island, they explore all of that with the character of Orihime acting as the polar opposite to Hottie Jones. Her character effectively holds up a mirror to us, the audience, and her people, for them and us all to see how ugly they are becoming. And as I mentioned, the stark contrast to Hottie Jones, the product of a hateful ideology, proving that if you follow this resentment far enough, you become exactly what you hate.
Yeah.
Prejudiced, maniac, obsessed with his own race. Fishman Island and Hottie Jones's character tells a story of how choosing hatred over forgiveness can lead to your own self-destruction, both on an emotional and physical level. This is on display throughout the entire story, but my favorite similarity I noticed was that of Nami and the former Fishman slaves. Just like the former slaves of Fishman Island, who morphed their own tattoos to represent something else
Yeah.
they believe in, so too did Nami change her
Yeah, that's true,
Arlong
yeah.
tattoo to something else. Effectively, Arlong did the exact same thing to the humans that he despised them for, reinforcing the notion that if you let the hatred consume you, you start to become exactly what you
hate.
Now,
Yeah.
before I wrap things up with this review, I'd like to break down all the interesting pieces of information and lore
Right,
that
here we go.
were
Yes.
revealed during
Boom.
this arc.
Let's do it.
First, and what comes to mind immediately is the significance of the ultimate weapon finally being revealed.
Yes.
Way back in Skypiea, coordinates pointed to this exact destination, and only now is it being explored and uncovered. That's mad. There's also
It's crazy.
an interesting moment where Luffy asks Jinbei right after he saves his life to join the Straw Hat crew, and while he doesn't immediately
He says he'll eventually do it.
due to his own need to take care of some certain businesses he needs to attend to, I think it's a really nice little thing left for us to look forward to
Yeah,
in the story.
I hope he
whenever
does.
It does end up happening, that is. Personally, I think Jinbei is a perfect addition to the Straw Hat.
Definitely.
Also, I didn't mention it during this arc, but Robin wandered off to uncover a
poneglyph.
in her own sort of
Bah.
side story, effectively disconnected from the rest of it until the very, very end. And on this particular poneglyph,
talks to the
read
king.
an apology from one Joy Boy, who was
Joy Boy,
revealed to
yeah.
have been someone that lived during the Void Century,
The 100 years of,
800
like,
years
history,
ago.
yeah.
Apparently, he broke a promise to the Fishmen, but they don't remember what it was. For. This is obviously super important, and I'm sure it will be explained later. But as of right now, I have no idea what to make of it. Oh, also, when the princess communicated to the
Luffy could hear them.
Luffy understood what was being said. That's massive. And I'm guessing, based off of the brief flashback we got of this exact
Goldie, Roger could as
situation
well.
happening with Roger, hearing the Neptunians, is that Roger didn't know that he had this power.
Yeah.
The fact that Luffy could come to learn the fact that he has this power could be a game changer
Oh,
when
yeah.
it comes to correcting
Sick.
history and revealing the Void Century. In other news, Akainu, the guy who yeeted Ace out of the picture, is now the new fleet admiral instead of Aokiji, who was put forward by Sengoku.
They
Apparently,
fought.
Aokiji has now left the Navy. Additionally, Luffy started a mad beef with Big Mom,
Oh,
one of the
yeah.
Emperors of the Sea. And in an effort to make amends, also sent her a bomb by mistake.
Accidentally,
which
yeah.
is hilarious.
Can't wait to see how that,
Has
like,
conveyed to you
turns
how
out.
insane and detailed this particular arc is. I encourage you to check it out for yourself. I personally very much enjoyed it. And
It was class. It was really good. Really, really good.
Building to something significant yet again, and I cannot wait to see what's to come for us in this series. But with a farewell pinky promise, I gotta say that this is the end of the video. As always, I've been Totally Not Mark. I'll see you all next week, and thank you so much for watching.
Awesome. Yeah, Fishman Island was cool, man. And then, what's it after Fishman Island? Is it Punk Hazard? Okay. Don't get it, but alright. Is it Punk Hazard after that? Because I've seen Punk Hazard, I really, really like that as well. And then I'm just starting Dress Rosa with Doflamingo. So, yeah, that's where I'm at. That was boss. That was a really cool review. There was a couple of lines, like I'm sure I mentioned already, that I thought was really cool. Like I said, Jinbei, when he does the transfusion, he's like, I'm a pirate, pirates don't follow the rules. I thought that was cool. And when the prince asks the bad guy, like, what did the humans ever do to you? He literally just turns around and just says, nothing. It's like, whoa. But anyway, thank you to my patrons. If you want to have your name at the end of every video I upload, links in the description to the Patreon page. $1 a month is all I ask to help support the channel. Greatly appreciated. Thank you very much for that, guys. And thank you all for watching. What do you guys think of that? What do you guys think of this? Click like, subscribe if you haven't already. Leave comments down below. Let me know what I should watch and discuss in future videos. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.